But back to trust
Yeah.
and video advertising. Obviously, it's a huge topic. These three interrelated, connected areas of supply and fraud and viewability all have a bit of an impact. But I want to start with the lack of premium supply. And Amir, if we can talk from a local world perspective,
well,
how are you generating supply at the moment?
So I guess not just from a local world perspective, from a publishing perspective, premium video supply is a massive issue. I would say for local world, for me, for most big publishers, that video is probably the most important strategy. Video content is the most important strategy right now. There's not a whole host of people that understand how to boost up supply. At local world, we're trying really hard. I've basically tried to engage the market, look at an array of technologies, of solutions, look at people that have done it well. So we're working with a few partners. We use Brightcove as our player. We're looking at licensing maybe relevant content. Because short form is a massive problem for advertising, which seems to be the bulk of most news publishers' videos. So we also work with a company called Suggestive, which can recommend relevant video content. So we're working on a number of strategies to boost up supply for video, but it is a problem, and it's probably one of the only areas in the market where the agencies are trying to snap our hands off, and will take anything, So it's a good problem, but we need to find out how to resolve it.
Jochen, then, from another publishing point of view, what are your views on the supply in the market, and how is it different over in Europe as well?
I guess first we have to think about why video is so important. It's important because we have TV advertising. It's coming from the TV budget, and agencies are promising that the new TV is online video. The problem with this is that the video consumption and the overall consumption in digital is very different from TV. We do not have 15 minutes ad blocks. That's something we simply do not have and will never have in digital. So we are short on supply by nature. And I guess the only opportunity for us to really dive into massive net reach and also gross reach values is that we invent another experience for the user in terms of video, which is not bound to the video content itself. We experimented with this long time now. It's, I guess, like since 8 years we have in-page formats. But they never worked well because buyers wanted to dive into the in-stream funnel, let's put it like that. But I see that new developments, especially from companies like Teats or even Facebook, doing their in-stream autoplay video, are giving the right direction here, because we can't focus on in-stream content alone when we want to really have the same scale and budgets in online as we have in TV.
Yeah, just on that, so Outstream, which you're referring to, the second type of video advertising, has become one of our largest economies. So Teads and other platforms like that have created a unique proposition that's freed up a whole host of inventory. And for example, local, we have 200 million page views a month. Because of Outstream, we're able to monetize our articles using the content break format in it's got a million names, but that particular format, and that didn't exist at all. And the revenue that's created for us is enormous. So there's a massive opportunity in Outstream, but it's a secondary market to pre-roll, and that still dictates the terms in which advertising takes place.
And that's still the most popular and the most successful.
Yeah.
But don't forget, I mean, not all publishers are putting as you guys, their premium inventory already in programmatic. There's still a route to go, and especially in the DACH region, where I worked before, it's going very slow to that direction. So that's why we have this lack of supply. I don't know what you think.
I agree, and I think first of all, the definition of premium, everybody thinks video is premium. Why? Why does everybody think video is premium? That's just a nonsense in itself. And most of video supply that we get introduced to, 40%, 50, well, actually about 45% is arbitrage. And they're sort of MPU-sized players. You've got, but that isn't visible at all times through the system to the buyer. So the buyer actually isn't knowing what they're buying until you do a post-analysis. Then you realize what you're buying and what to claw back. You've got a huge issue. Now, that doesn't mean that some of that arbitrage model doesn't have videos that are valuable, but what's the true value? So I think the first thing is defining what premium is. Premium is actually, in our view, is something that is transparent, that actually you know what you're buying, and then as a buyer you can make a choice as to whether you wish to purchase it for a price that is fair. So non-premium is video content and video ads that are fraudulent, or not just by technically fraudulent, but actually not, it isn't what they say it is. In other words, it's sort of player size isn't right, the autoplay.
Wrong labeled.
Right, premium for you is how it's labelled.
Well, premium is completely how it's labelled, because then there are buyers in the market, and they, right now our industry exists for people buying that stuff. That's what happens. Not all videos out there are just fantastic, high definition, sort of superb, glossy videos. Our business exists. If you go to Cannes and sit on a yacht, it exists because of that business. That's the reality of it. And, and it's about making things visible and making things more transparent and allowing the buyer to make an informed choice as to whether they want to buy that or not buy it. And I think that's what we have to do, be honest with ourselves. To
stick on supply then for a bit longer then, Hossein, what's it then coming like from a buyer point of view then? What are the most in demand formats that you're seeing, and where is the supply?
So, we talked about this before. We always have the same formats, right? It's always the same discussion. Our biggest challenges are, again, is ad fraud viewability, is brand context, and what we forget in the discussion of supply is as well content. If I don't see my ad in the above the fold or below the fold, if the content is really good, if the video is produced well, I will watch the video, I will engage with the video, and so on. I think what this industry is forgetting, that programmatic starts with the creative, then with the buy, and then with the publisher. We need to all communicate, right? We need to sit on the same table. We just talked about that in the back. Yeah. The yield, we should lock up a trader and a yield manager for a day and see who survives, or they're best friends after, I don't know. Yeah. The publisher's interest is of yielding the inventory to the best price for him, of course, from a programmatic point of view, and we want to buy as effective as possible and efficient for our clients. With all these challenges, it is very tough, because our clients are they are smart today. Mm-hmm. There are people from this industry that are going on client side, and they are basically, challenging us with these topics every day. What are you doing against that? What's your solution? And the solution, in my point of view, is just a better communication. What we're saying for years now, by the way. But
So. And also, a lot of people say that, and then it's who takes the initiative to do it. Or use a lot of speech rather than much action.
I've said this a number of times, that I think that the agencies that are being the most proactive about engaging publishers are going to reap the most reward. It's funny that networks become a dirty word, but it's a solution for agencies to aggregate lots of inventory. And you'd be surprised how many agencies still move budgets into networks or crypto networks. So it's important for the communication to take place and to have a proactive attitude, locking the yield manager and the trader in a room and discovering what are the limitations from making us work stronger. Is it the technology? Does media math not communicate to AppNexus? Is it the environment? Is it the audience? Is there a way that our audience can be tailored to your particular campaign?
I just think nascent is a word that's been, I've heard a number of times today actually, and but it is a new industry, and and there are things that our media partners that provide us with inventory, which sometimes isn't correctly labelled. Most of them, and the ones that we keep, aren't doing it on purpose. They just don't know what they're sending us sometimes. They just don't know. And it's just a crazy situation when you've got somebody trying to sell something into the marketplace, which they don't know what it is. It's like going to a supermarket where you're labeling an orange as an apple, you know, and then I'm hoping a buyer can recognize the difference. And then somebody outside is actually, you have to pay them £1 to double check whether it's an apple or an orange that they bought, you know, and then you pay that sort of third-party vendor to do that.
And
that's terrifying. Yeah.
And it's still chocolate at the end.
And it's still chocolate, yeah, because their algorithm doesn't detect whether it's a red apple or a green apple. That's somebody else's algorithm, you know, but they didn't tell you that at the time. The whole thing's madness. It's absolute madness. You know, if you're going to sell something, at least know what it is you're selling, you know, and the industry needs to do a better job and create better tools in order to do that.
Yeah.
Well, not only tools. I mean, it's programmatic. I mean, like most of the times when we have a programmatic discussion, it's only RTB. And like programmatic is an ecosystem where you plan, you buy, you optimize, then you attribute, and then you plan again. Right? It's a process, which means somewhere there is a human in the process that makes that decision, and it's not all automated. So we need to communicate and learn from each other to be better. I mean,
Sorry, go on.
I guess that makes a good point. We have a lot of technology, especially about programmatic. We have a lot of formats. We have a lot of possibility to measure. But in the end, trust is something between persons, not between technology. Whenever there's a technology which measures fraud or measures something, it's a human being using it and interpreting it. So I guess all of you are right. We have to talk from seller to buyer, but there are on both sides there are huge problems. I see this. We are helping publishers with connecting to the programmatic world, and if they would do this individually, it would be really very much work for them to do. It's very hard to dive into these technologies.
So exactly on that, I would say that trust is a key factor, but also expertise. You know, programmatic in different businesses is lodged with different people. Someone very senior, for instance, says, "Oh, this programmatic thing is, you know, this is quite advanced. It's an ops thing." And then somebody else might say, oh, it's completely different. And programmatic, like Hossein said, doesn't exclude a direct deal. Yeah. It's merely a transactional method. It's merely a way of, you know, the finance industry went through a revolution in the 90s, and I found this quite fascinating, that you had, you know, people with pens and papers who were selling shares in businesses, and then it became bots to bots. And programmatic is just the same process. It's about automation, is about embracing technology for the purposes of advertising. But there's many compounding issues that are blocking that, you know.
Yeah, well, I think it's standardization. You know, the standards just haven't been approved. I mean, tech can create trust if the standards are agreed and known between all the entities. And if you've got the IAB or the Media Ratings Council or others sort of approving more and more third-party tech vendors to check whether, you know, my fraud stuff's better than their fraud stuff, my viewability is better than their viewability, well, expose your algorithms. Well, no, that's our secret sauce. That's our business. I'm not going to do that. So what you've got is multiple third-party vendors creating a huge amount of nonsense. Well, I was in a recent, you know, major global publisher the other day, and they were spending so much time on their sort of spreadsheets, sort of verifying whether or not the inventory that they sent to the buyer was correct, because they were using one type of, you know, anti-fraud and reviewability measure.
That's where we can learn from TV. Crazy. In TV, you have an independent measurement system, which is completely crapped, because it's most likely will measure the wrong thing, but they at least have one standard, and they can work with this. So you have a truth. And we do not have the truth in online by nature, because everybody has his own truth, which is also a right thing.
Don't forget there's so much tech involved, right? There's so much tech and so much lack of knowledge, you know, starting from data. And not only that, when you use Tech 1 and Tech 2, they don't like each other from the beginning, right? So it needs time to adjust these two technologies, and we've seen that from the start of RTB, you know, trying to buy inventory and, you know, doing this first private deals, and no inventory would come through. And because, you know, the SSP and the DSP wouldn't communicate right, you know, so.
Yeah, but let me get back to the point of measurement. We see some initiatives over Europe in trying to establish the same system as we have in TV, also in online, e.g. with Comscore in the Netherlands. I guess it's also Comscore over here in the UK. And we try to do the same also in the comparably small market, Switzerland.
How successful has that been?
It is a very, very hard way to go, because then you talk with the TV guys and they have fears. You know?
Well, the problem is as well is that the same businesses will be at the top of the list. I think the elephant in the room for programmatic is that long tail and mid tail sites have been really empowered by the advent of programmatic. If you're looking for audience, does it matter if the person is a 25-year-old female who's in the market for a car? You want the ad to be shown to her at the right time and to that individual. You're not necessarily concerned with paying £50 to X publisher or 50p to another publisher because you want the best ROI for your client. Local World has profited off this massively. 3 years ago, we wouldn't get a look in. But because of our scale, we're a secondary marketplace. Reality is when these trading desks are retargeting, there's all these people on the plan, all these buyers, but they're probably on Grindr, finding the right user, and they don't know how to communicate this back to their client because they get in the conversion. But this is a massive problem. So it's funny you mentioned about premium, what it means. Premium for us, what we're seeing from the market is just an environment, but we still have in-banner MPUs coming on our environment. Who's fueling that problem? Is it the agency or the publisher? So
it's the price point, though, isn't it? So I mean, within our ecosystem, we've got major global brands happy to pay a couple of dollars CPM for a particular unit, because it performs for them in some way, and if they know what it is that they're buying, whereas others sort of would put a price point at a much higher price point for that sort of inventory. So it's really, we see, and our whole business is driven by exposing that inventory and making it available, and then, who are we to judge whether somebody sees a value in it or not? Looking at it in a further way down the line, though, however, it's the publisher or the media partner is going to decide whether that's a great user experience for the consumer, and that's the other bit that's sometimes missing in the whole ad tech party is what experience.
Well, Hossein might be able to comment on this, but there's millions and millions of pounds coming out of the agencies into makeshift solutions like in-banner video solutions on MPUs. I've got nothing against that. There's loads of tech startups that are doing that. We welcome that money at Local World. But the reality is that it's being fueled by the fact that you can cream off the top in an agency. They're sending one person out to beat us over the head with a stick, saying, I need viewability, I need VPaid, this and that. On the other side, we've got the same advertiser through the same agency coming through on an in-banner solution below the fold for 50 cents programmatically.
But this also heavily depends on the advertiser. If you're a bank, you want to be in a context which fits to a bank. If you're Zalando, you just want to sell shoes, or it's a difference.
And I think this programmatic, this sort of premium nonsense that keeps mentioned about video all the time. At the end of the day, when people talk about in-banner video, it's really, I'm old and grey. It used to be called an animated sort of unit. It used to be some sort of animation in there that you charged a premium for. It was a banner that did something. And now this banner happens to be a video, and it's really bad. But it's actually, isn't that an evolution through increased bandwidth? That banner
it's an increased price, actually.
Because
when you say video, it's more expensive than animated.
But it's not only. It's not only. You're talking about activation when we buy, right?
Yeah.
Data. It's not. What do we do with the data we already have? How do we plan? Because what you guys talked about was retargeting. What the definitely traders were doing in the beginning of RTB was everybody was talking about retargeting. All this about prospecting. The better I buy, and I'm just making this right now. This funnel doesn't exist anymore, this sales funnel, but the better I am up there, the more successful I'm at the end of the purchase funnel. Right? And we need to look into different directions as well, where I said it's on the one hand content and creative. On the other end, we need to work closely with CRM agencies as well to build out of this chunk of first-party data, have probably a micro audience to know where to buy better, actually. Even if I buy through a platform or if I send you a fax, or you send me when I sign it, doesn't matter. At the end, I need that inventory for my audience and for my client.
Yeah.
Right. So we're having that conversation today, and it's like the data discussion we have in general. How good is data? How good is third-party data? First-party data is only as good as the taxonomy I have built it on, and third-party data is somebody else's first-party data. And if that guy is collecting the way he wants to collect, he's just collecting everything. It's going to point my algorithm in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And so as I said, there's so many facets in programmatic. You can't blame buy or sell or whoever. We just need to measure it, like Havas is doing that with various of tools, with our meta quality barometer, where we measure with ad fraud, viewability, brand context, and ad cluster. We put these together to generate a score which is benchmarked on the best 25% publishers.
And that goes out to some publishers then on what they're on scaling their inventory.
Yes.
Okay.
And then to go into conversation, there's never going to be 100% fraud-free or non-human traffic, non-human.
Well, we were talking about this earlier because Lucinda was asking about fraud, and I was saying that credit card fraud exists. The way our industry latches onto something is that it becomes like a buzzword for the moment or for the year, but it'll be a problem that's from before and will continue after. And it's like perennial issues inside media. People latch onto them at some point, so that's fine. We should do everything we can to stop that. I mean, I agree with the agencies. They shouldn't pay for impressions that are not seen, but there are many factors. It's not just about simple fraud. It's about latency. It's about technology limitations, and there are other people that need to help to resolve that.
Yeah, but if you talk about fraud, I guess fraud is such a huge topic because we can actually detect it. There were times when we were not able to detect fraud, and these were the ad network times. You said, okay, the ad network is a model which perhaps is something which is good to go with for the future. I say that the model of the ad network is not something which should appear again. Of course, you need aggregators, and of course, you need technology stacks in between. There will never be, I guess, in my opinion, there will never be a world where the publisher has his SSP and is free to go with all the buyers. So there will be players, e.g. like us or Irfon, who care for the technology in between. But what's very, very important is that you are transparent with what you're doing, and that you technically enable buyers to see what they want to see inside of your inventory. And that's a big difference from the ad network we had, I don't know, 2, 3, 5 years ago.
I agree, and actually fixing viewability isn't really that complex, guys. I mean, it's not a huge sort of technical task.
How do we do it?
Well, I think it's the standards. It's not about the algorithm that detects whether or not that sort of that video comes into view for a period of time. Technically, that's not that difficult, but agreeing on a set of standards about what that is and making them as robust as possible. And actually, the industry is doing. Standards
is tailored to each client differently, though. That's the problem we're facing.
Yeah, I think that. So, I agree. But I mean, but then doing a viewability score. So that again, it becomes a price-based decision to say, right. So you can have this, which is, score number 1, and this is just score number 5. So having those ratings, I think, again, exposes data and information to the buyer, and they make a choice, and then it becomes a price point. The issue is that I think in the marketplace, from an inventory perspective, video is still priced way too high, way too high. The models are just ridiculous on some of the models, and the arbitrage model that's happening, which is, my view, not going to go away. I mean,
it's futures trading.
It's never going to go away.
Let's be honest. I mean, like I said, I don't say that I think it's good for networks to remain there. I'm saying that networks, even transparent networks exist right now, and they'll make a lot of money because it's not going to go away. It's a solution for people that are too lazy to engage publishers, to engage the right people.
Well, again, it's up to the data as well here, right? Because ad networks survived in the RTB and programmatic world because in the beginning there was not enough data, and there again we only had first party and we were retargeting. It was not enough to address your audiences and deliver performance in the campaign. So, and it's just kept alive since then, and I think it will slightly go away.
Yeah, but also, these bots, and I guess you do something similar. What is the responsibilities of these guys nowadays? They qualify inventory. They go ahead and say, okay, this is good inventory. I want to sell this to you, to the person I trust. So I guess this is actually something buyers need because they now have the huge potential of programmatic at hand. But open market, or the open market didn't solve their problems because actually of fraud, and now they need people just to qualify inventory.
I think what we're seeing is that from a buy side is a real hunger for an alternative to Facebook and YouTube. You know, a closed garden, sort of walled garden environment, so we can get the data back out. And if you can package up a brand safe, viewable, scalable, global video set of inventory, you know, to those buyers where they can pass data in and the data comes back out again, there's a real desire that we're seeing in the market for that to be, and obviously that's what Coull's trying to do.
If it doesn't go that way, we end up just doing standard ad serving through a DSP with private deals, right? Because which is nothing else than ad serving.
Yeah, it's programmatic as a fact.
Yeah, yes.
You know, an insertion order.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Facebook and YouTube and Google as well, as they are these walled gardens, and not letting people, or not letting third-party vendors then go and actually monitor their inventory, keeping that this walled garden because of privacy standards. Then is that a valid argument in itself?
I think what we said, I don't want to comment on that. I think what we're seeing though is, you know, companies like Moat doing deals with sort of Facebook, and, you know, Comscore doing deals with YouTube and others. So I think we're seeing cracks in that sort of process. But I don't know from a buy side how that comes back. To be honest,
I mean, if a supplier comes and tells us like you can only exit that inventory through this platform, I mean, it's difficult, you know, because we want to be agnostic. We want to choose the technology we want to work with, and based on, you know, the quality that technology brings. And I think this decision basically fires up the discussion of like how can we get more inventory with other suppliers. So that decision not necessarily is a bad decision. It's just pushing things forward, to be honest, and bringing us more supply with other channels.
It's really unhealthy to have one marketplace for video supply, and also to use, you know, Google. I don't know if there's anyone here from Google, but they'll probably kneecap me because we're ex-Google, both of us. But, you know, to a full stack solution where you corner the buyer and the seller into one technology, which we're having to engage. I have to engage that as a publisher because I won't make as much money as I can. Is unhealthy. It's a problem because it's an abuse. It's an abuse of your position. So, and it's not to say that other technologies are not good enough. They just don't have that power and muscle over supply, over different things to get a look in. So I'm a big advocate of new technologies, actually. I love that. And I like the market being, you know, healthy and saturated. I like to experiment with technology. So as long as you have that attitude, you might find workarounds. Otherwise, it will just be buying through YouTube with Google DBM.
It's a long-term strategy to get rid of the middleman. That's what they want. They want to directly go to the buyer and tell them, oh, you know what, you don't need an agency, you don't need any other supplier. Yeah. Actually, you can go ahead and self-book your video over here on YouTube, and then that's it. And I think this is not very healthy for the ecosystem as in the whole.
And I think that sort of, you know, we were talking earlier, and, you know, we've been talking about trust and fraud for years. And it's actually in some companies' best interest for that discussion to continue. And actually, you know, and it's really, the opportunity exists, you know, outside of those walled gardens, and for, you know, new entrants. I'm not just talking about Coull, but there's plenty of others that are sort of coming through, because it just represents a great opportunity, and because the hunger is there from the buy side, and there's plenty of inventory there. It's not all fraudulent. It isn't all bad news. The industry is doing a much better job of tidying it up.
Yeah, and we know that even those big players have big challenges with non-human traffic. You know? So they're not completely free of that.
Yeah.
Is that Google Insight there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Just send them something. Yeah. Like,
but in terms of like, so I think as an example, we work really closely with Group M. I'm a massive fan of Group M. I think that what they're doing is, I'm probably the only one actually. I'm not that easy, although I might come across that way. But yeah, so look, Xaxis, right, has a really controversial reputation. Mm-hmm. I don't see why. I think they've been very good. Xaxis have been buying local world's inventory for 2 years. You know, before they were buying it through an ad network that I was working for, and after they were buying it directly once I joined. And that's really proactive. They were prospecting off of local world's inventory. I have an email nearly every day from somebody within Group M who represents Xaxis, talking to me about something, one product or what supplier, what inventory I can give them, this and that. So they're very forward thinking. There's a reason they're cleaning up on the advertisers. I like the Xaxis model. I think, you know, you can't complain because publishers, we as publishers haven't been proactive in hiring the right people, and Xaxis have. You know, Xaxis haven't handed everything over to Google. WPP have a really good strategy, I think, in terms of not making it just one entity. And obviously, Havas are, I think, pursuing the same thing. I hope they are. Are you? But yeah, for Group M, I can say that they're doing a good job in that. So,
I mean, the agency world is shifting that thinking. I mean, and they're bringing in different people. You have to bring different people, from a data scientist to people who work on the tech side, you know, as well as the brands, you know, bringing people in from agencies, you know. So there's a massive shift, and there's a sorry, my English is not. There's a difference of how we think today towards like 10 years ago. Now, it's not only a media plan you run, you traffic and then ongoing. So many other things in between for discussion from the trading and the buying on the publisher side.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you look at getting the campaign out in the most efficient way, I mean, the WPP group, and you've got all these agencies in there, and you've got the media plans, and then you've got Xaxis, who are the most effective at doing that. There's, you know, the resistance to Xaxis shouldn't be based around snobbery or, you know, well, that's not us. Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Yeah, but not you. But that's definitely said. But I think it should rather be to improve yourself as an entity, to hire the right people, as you're saying.
Well, yeah. Look, we just from an agency perspective, we're just trying to go to the next level, you know, and they're on a good path, and we work closely with our technology partners. We're having the same conversations probably other agencies have with the publishers from a global and local level. We want to improve. We want to decrease the wastage. That's what this panel is about, and it's not easy, right? So go ahead, ask me.
Let me ask you one question. What is your main KPI with video advertising as an agency? What is your KPI in the end exactly? How do you measure the success of a video campaign? Is it view-through rate? Is it gross rating points? What is it?
You can't generalize that. No.
Would it be based on the brand?
Yeah, based on the brand, you can't generalize that. No, I wouldn't generalize that. It's like it's the same in display ads. I mean, like the question I would ask you, like, what would we optimize on, right? The metric.
No, what we actually see is a lot of TV campaigns or TV plans which are going into online, and where you exactly have the same measurements. They want to have an OTS of 2 and a GRP of 50, whatever.
Well, that conversation is there forever. I mean, when I started in this business, and like as you said, like the TV buyers or even the agencies are scared of transition that budget to programmatic. I mean, when we came with RTV, everybody thought they're going to lose their jobs because everything is automated. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of time, because TV buying is programmatic as well. You know, you optimize in real time. It's just, you know, we just need to find the same level, you know, on metrics where everybody's happy. And we need to. Yeah. That's why we have this fraud discussion. We need to find a solution for that, because that's what TV buyers are afraid of.
And then would that be then the people the companies to mobilize think that the standards would be the trade bodies?
Well, I think it's the trade bodies that can. They haven't proven yet to put robust standards in place, which is why buyers are putting their own standards in place.
Exactly. Yeah.
So until buyers are happy, you know, and I think that actually I'm all for the demand side defining, you know, what needs to be in place. technically, in order for them to feel comfortable putting more budget into our business. Because isn't that how all markets work? I'll choose what shop I go into based on what's on the shelf and the price point.
Depends on the country. No.
From each of you then to try and finish this up a bit, but what needs to happen for the buyer to be able to complete with complete confidence? What needs to happen, and when do you predict that will happen by, from each one of you?
Well, I think in the stage right now, we're communicating, we try to improve. Again, I think that discussion of how we can rebuild trust into video advertising shouldn't start at placements or like between the buy and the sell side. It should be started at the content side. Like how can I make a video dynamic for the right audience to show them the right content, and go from there and buy the right audience, the publisher.
Okay. Irfon.
I mean, for us, on the sort of open web and mobile web in across 150 countries, it's happening. The trust has been rebuilt right now because technology has been applied, and that inventory has been presented into the customer. So trust is already starting to be built. I think that having very open-palmed conversations about some of the crap that tries to hit the ecosystem and tries to get sold, and being very open palm about it being not a problem, there isn't a solution that's going to fix it all. That's communication, and the communication happens within all parties. It informs the media partners and the publishers to get their act together. It informs the buyer as to what's available, and then we just keep evolving through the tech platforms to get it better. So it's happening. This isn't a negative story. It's a positive story.
Good. We should have ended with you. Sorry.
I'll try and be positive.
I guess it starts on the customer side. If I look into video advertising and digital in general, I see huge potential to really define your own KPIs as a brand, to measure them technically, to really work on this, instead of having to rely on measurements from the supply side as you have in TV. And this is something which only can slowly get into the brands. So at some point they will get it, and they will learn to play with different types of video advertising, with different styles, short form, long form, whatever. And they will be able to really technically measure the success of this particular campaign or whatever it is. And at that point in time, they will have trust, because then they know it works.
I guess picking up from that, so from my exposure, TV audience metrics are trusted. Buying TV is not a huge problem. It works. I also agree with saying that programmatic does it's relevant to both sectors, but it takes a different meaning. So programmatic, as is understood in the online advertising sense, shouldn't be applied to broadcasting. It's more of an umbrella term that houses so many different ways of looking at campaigns and advertising. And in TV, that's been happening for a while. I think with online advertising, it's different. The reason it's different is because when you buy TV, it's about buying a package or an audience that we know watches Game of Thrones, that we know watches, CIS or all these programs. But online is more moment marketing. So it's about buying the right user in the moment. So I wouldn't say that RTB will become a facet of online video advertising in a strong way, but buying and executing that programmatically, the user that you buy online will be. But it's about getting the right metrics that are trusted for the online supply side and the buy side to execute the campaign programmatically.
That's it. So the lack of standards really for measurement seems to be something that is coming up.
I don't think TV will change dramatically, to be honest with you. I think they would embrace programmatic technologies, but they won't change the way the financials won't change in the way that publishers manage to lose loads of money overnight. To RTB.
Right, well, there's a lot that has come out of that. There's quite a few things that we still haven't touched on as well, like the impact on the consumer as well from adding more onto this stack. But I think these are issues and challenges that have been going on for years, and we are on the way to hopefully getting a bit more trust back in online video. But I'm afraid we don't have time for questions from the audience, but if you would all join me in thanking our fantastic panel.